Welcome to another Splatoon 2 video on the channel. This will be another news roundup video, and pretty much I am just catching up on all of the news that I haven't covered yet on the channel. So pretty much Nogami has done a couple of interviews. I do believe the first one popped up on Indie Gamer, and the second one I do believe popped up on the Switch news app or the Switch news section, and they are definitely really interesting interviews. So yeah, pretty much what I will be doing in this video is reading both those interviews, and I will leave a link to those interviews in the description for you to read for yourself. So Indie Gamer asked Nogami if the team had any plans for the final Splatfest. This is how Nogami answered that question. Well, to be honest with you, we actually haven't decided on a theme for the last Splatfest for Splatoon 2. That is a good point to mention, that we don't actually decide the themes for all of our Splatfests ahead of time, but rather we kind of keep a running look of what the community would enjoy and try to make those decisions about Splatfest themes on a real-time basis as we go forward. And so for the last Splatfest for Splatoon 2, we would like to continue watching what the community might enjoy most and keep an eye on that as we approach that time, as we still have some time left. I definitely found that interesting how Nintendo don't necessarily know what all of the Splatfests will be. They don't necessarily know, like they don't have like a lineup, right, this is going to be September Splatfest, this is going to be October Splatfest, but rather what they do is they look at what the community wants and they try to provide the best topic for what the community is talking about. But having said that, I'm not sure where they do get these Splatfest topics from. It's like the Fork versus Spoon Splatfest in North America. Maybe because some people did the whole Spoon 2 meme with the Splatoon 2 logo. Maybe that is why they did decide to hold that Splatfest in North America. But that is interesting how they try to provide the topics in terms of what the community is talking about. But like what I said before, some of the topics that we have had, especially in Splatoon 1, in Europe, we had which is better, North Pole or South Pole in the summer. I don't know anybody in Europe that was talking about that, so that part of the answer was interesting, as well as the final Splatfest. I am really surprised that Nintendo haven't really got a plan for what the final Splatfest will be. And I'm not sure what the community would want, to be honest with you. I'm not sure whether the community would prefer Pearl versus Marina to be the final Splatfest, or Squid Sisters versus Off the Hook, or maybe the community would want a tournament like what we had with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and maybe in the first round you've got Pearl versus Marina, then you have Callie versus Marie, and then the winner will take part in the final Splatfest, and the winner will of course win that whole tournament, and that is who will win the final Splatfest. So I'm not sure what the community would want, so let me know in the comment section below what you want the final Splatfest to be. And who knows, maybe Nintendo, they might look at what you guys are saying on not just of course this video, but on sites like Reddit, Amino. By the way, I do have a Amino account now, but I probably will not be posting that much on my Amino account. So yeah, basically let me know in the comment section below what you want the final Splatfest to be. I think I would want that tournament idea that I just came up with. So you got Pearl versus Marina, Callie versus Marie in round 1, and then the final will be whoever wins the first round out of those two Splatfests. I want Nintendo to go all out for the final Splatfest, so I think the more Splatfests we do get, the better. So I think I would want that tournament idea that I did just come up with. Let's move on to the interview on the Switch News app. The interviewer first asked Nogami about the creatures on the Deep Sea Metro in the Octo Expansion and the inspiration behind their designs. This is Nogami's answer to that question. It's a little strange, a little mysterious because it's underground, right? It is different from the surface world we have seen so far. Of course, the animals that live on the actual ocean floor in the real world evolved in unique and strange ways too. And we wanted to create a world with a lot of contrast to what we have seen so far from the world of Splatoon to evoke that feeling of strangeness. The interviewer then asked Nogami why the Octoling was decided to be the main character for the Octo Expansion. We wanted to show that this is a multifaceted world. The protagonists we've seen so far in the Splatoon series have all been Inklings, squid. The truth is that the squids aren't exactly defenders of justice in this world. They are not supposed to be the good guys. The squids have their squid society, and while there are other creatures that they are friendly with, like the jellyfish, the squids live in a world made for squids. We wanted to show that other creatures in this world have their own societies too, and they all do what they need to do to protect what they have. It's a way to bring richness and depth to the world of Splatoon, which we hope will bring our fans deeper in the series. I definitely feel like Nintendo did a great job of doing that with the Octo Expansion. Nogami said that they wanted to show how different societies and people can understand each other and live together. Nogami was then asked about the water law and why Octolings are also hurt by water, just like the Inklings. Nogami answered by saying the concept behind these creatures is that they evolved to be able to transform, and at one point in that evolution process they lost the ability to live in the water. The Octolings evolved in the same way that the Inklings did, like their skin is a little too thin for the water now. That's why they can transform. But just like the Inklings, they can't swim in water anymore. Now Nogami has talked about those two questions in other interviews, but I just thought I would include those two questions and answers just because I definitely did find them really interesting to read. The interviewer then said, "That makes me wonder if the jellyfish are the ones that actually control the world of Splatoon 2. Nogami said, "Maybe you're right. When you play the game, you will often see jellyfish in the stands watching the Inklings battle. What if they are actually the sponsors behind these battles? Maybe they are the ones supporting the whole turf war industry." The interviewer then said, "Now that you mention it, they do like to land around by the pool." Nogami said the jellyfish aren't really individuals, it's more like they are all parts of a larger organism. So even when you see them playing in the pool, or when you spot two jellyfish lovers hanging out at the poolside, it isn't that they are actually jellyfish in love, but more like they want to behave like or impersonate what it would look like if they were jellyfish lovers. Regardless, I'm glad you brought up the jellyfish. They are another angle on this world that is entirely separate from the Inklings and Octolings. As we go through development, the staff starts to think of all kinds of stories and explanations that don't end up getting explicitly stated in the final game, but we save all the ideas so that we share and reference them together whenever we start making new content. I would definitely love to see the stories that the dev team does come up with. I would definitely love to see that get stated in the actual game itself. And in terms of the jellyfish lore that Nogami did just talk about, that was definitely interesting. I do believe Nogami did talk about something similar in a previous interview, but yeah, I can't really remember when he did talk about that, so that is why I thought I would include it again in this video. It is something that I'm sure some of you guys might have missed when Nogami did talk about that sort of stuff before, but yeah, that jellyfish lore definitely is really interesting. Nogami was asked about why the Octo Expansion looks different to the rest of the game and what inspired those changes. This is how Nogami answered that question. When we started thinking about Octo Expansion, we wanted to take the art in another new direction. You will find that it is usually a little darker and quieter in the new mode. Those are the elements we started with, which led us to think of the subway setting. Down deep underground, there isn't as much happening as there is up and above ground. Things move slower down there, so in a certain way, it's like time has stopped. The objects are dated and nostalgic, they're from another time. The characters also speak with antiquated slang. We thought a lot about the New York subway system, and we referenced that particular mood it has when we were designing the world. I love to hear about the background behind the stuff that does appear in the game. It is cool to learn about what did inspire the devs when they did make the Octo Expansion, and yeah, it sounds like the New York subway system played a role in terms of providing inspiration for the Octo Expansion. The interviewer then asked about the process for coming up with brand new stages and content. Nogami said, to be honest, it's a pretty involved process. While we think about content from all kinds of angles, we probably spend most of our time considering the functions of the new weapons. Once we figure out how we want the weapons to work, we design the appearance to match the intended function. Finally, once the function and design are locked down, we test how it behaves in game to keep the game balanced. Now, I'm sure that last bit definitely will raise a lot of eyebrows in the community, especially with the release of the Blob Lobber, which definitely does seem a lot stronger than a lot of the weapons in the game. For me, the Blob Lobber could do with a nerf. I feel like it is overpowered at this moment in time, but let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. Nogami then goes on to say that there are also times that we start working from a design or an idea we like. The Splatbrella started that way. We had these memories of playing with umbrellas as children, and we wanted to replicate that experience in the game. The whole idea behind Splatoon 2 is the use of ink, that emulation of childhood games like water balloon fights, and that those childhood games have grown into the official sports of this world. It was important to continue that theme of bringing childhood experiences into the gameplay. Nogami was then asked, what do you prefer to eat, squid or octopus? And Nogami answered by saying squid. Nogami then talked about how the team views the world of Splatoon 2. The game heavily features turf battles. We referenced a lot of things from the real world when we were developing the idea for them. We approached it a bit like an extreme sport like BMX or something. One of those sports that is a little dangerous but also a lot of fun. These kind of things tend to start as fun activities that eventually evolve into more official sports. Take snowboarding for example. Even at the Olympics they blast music during the events and the competitors are sort of performing for the crowd, right? That is what the turf battles are like. That's why the music is so loud and youthful. It's like all of these different genres of music are all mixed together, and the only thing that ties it together is that that's the kind of music that happens to be popular with the youth in the world at that time. We are not only focused on the content of the game, but also on the in-game culture and how it reflects the way cultures change over time in our world. We think about what it would be like to be a teenager within that world and then try to make the world match what those teenagers would like, what kind of sports and activities they would create, what kind of music they would listen to. There's inspiration from all over the place, but the dev team was encouraged to think back to their own teenage years and the way they approached things. The interviewer then asked, so there are different kinds of music in the game because there are different kinds of inklings. Right, the soundtrack is supposed to feel like the top of the pop charts for that world. When the game is updated, new songs are added and the player can feel the trends changing over time, just like what happens in the real world. We wanted to give the player the feeling of becoming an inkling and inhabiting that living, breathing world. That philosophy really dictates how we approach the design process, because it's really all about giving the player that experience. So that is it in terms of both interviews, and yeah, I definitely did find the interviews really interesting. We got some really cool lore details in there. I think it's time for me to press that stop button because there was so much for me to read in this video. My voice is starting to go. I am starting to lose my voice, but yeah, I definitely did find what I did talk about and read in this video really interesting, really cool to learn about. Really grateful for those two interviews. Like what said, I will leave a link to both interviews in the description just in case you can't understand what I am saying, just because my voice was going at the end, and unfortunately I don't have time to re-record the parts where my voice went a little bit. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. It is probably a really long video, so I must apologise about that, but that is it for this video and I will see you next time.